Hello, Newborn Nation, Newbornkilik here, welcoming you back to another stupid urban story. Today we have an extra special one. I'm not going to tell you who the author is, not that that's incredibly common, but just know it's someone very special and I challenge you to figure out who it is. But anywho's just what, let's get right into this story. This story is called Boo Hoo. Now you might be thinking, Newbornkilik, what in the world does Boo have to do with any of this? And hopefully we will find out by the end of the story. But let's get right into this. Exactly 3.25 years ago to this moment, I was casually walking down the street, when I suddenly stepped up on something with my foot. Now, at this point, I looked down to see what I'd stepped on with my foot, and I noticed that it was a copy of my favorite game, Super Mario 64. As I tilted my head down upon the game, I noticed the back of my large, round head became slightly moist. Ooh, a moist head. That's weird. Anywho's it's what, as I rotated my head 180 degrees, my eyeballs were assaulted with the pitter-patter of rain from a small rain cloud that could be seen just over the game. You snapped your neck back around just popped it back there. Very impressive if we're being totally honest, but Arthur thought to himself, that's weird. I thought to myself, my game didn't come with its own personal rain cloud exclusively only from the spooky version of GameStop, Again, I just assumed it was some sort of pre-order bonus. What a find! Yes, what a find. It's definitely not haunted or anything like that. It's definitely just a lucky coincidence that there's a rain cloud over the game. I hope we find the plot here sometime soon. I really do. Anywho's it's what, Arthur bent over, and picked up the game with my abnormally large hands. As I stood up, I heard a whisper in my ear that said something along the lines of, if your hand is bigger than you'll face, you have cancer. Naturally, I needed to conduct a scientific study into whether or not I had cancer. I placed my hand near my face to compare the sizes. Period. You're gonna fall for this one right now? You're gonna fall for it right now? You're gonna fall? And just as I say that, a strong, cold burst of wind crammed my hand into my face, bloodying my nose in the process. Were you homeschooled? That was classic misdirection and you fell for it. As blood jetted from Arthur's nose, Arthur lazily rushed home, strange choice of adjectives, blood spewing constantly, and only onto the game. Almost as if the game was a thirsty boy. You know, the thirstiest of boys. Okay, so let me get this straight. Your nose was jetting out water, and it was spewing only onto the game. No, that's not like that. That's okay. That's okay. That's fine. That's a good thing. That's what normal games do. As soon as I got home, I slammed my door shut and jumped all the way up the stairs to the second story, clearing my 30 purebred beagles in the process, who had no doubt come to say hello. God, that is a cuteness wave that I was not ready for. Anywho's it's what, I front flipped into my room, shutting my door and flinging my shoes perfectly at the foot of my bed. We got ourselves an acrobat here, and I appreciate that, okay? That is stylish and you know it. I then gently placed the cold, heavy cartridge into... Cold, heavy cartridge? I guess it was rained on by blood. After rained on by rain. You inconsiderate jerk. Anywho's it's what... I then placed the cold, heavy cartridge into my Nintendo 64. I heard a strange sound as I slowly slid the cartridge into the tight slot. Sexual tension awkwardly placed in the story here. Come to think of it, that kind of sounded like gunshots. Okay, I said erotically. Okay. Not long after that, I was just about to turn the power switch to my classic black-style Nintendo 64. My mother violently kicked in the door, freeing the door from its hinges and bouncing it about my room like a plastic toy. Eventually, the door hit one of my nearby Burger King exclusive golden trading cards, finally coming to a halt. As my mother burst... Wait. As my mother burst. You mean burst in? That one's more acceptable. But mother calmly said, "Hi honey, today we are shooting a few movies." Clever, I think I see what you did there. Let's see where this goes. It was at this point that I noticed she was carrying a DVD case, perfectly perforated with plenty of puncture points. Ah, nice alliteration way to just ruin the recording right there. Thank you. You're lucky I saw that one, okay? If I hadn't seen that, the recording would have been ruined. But let's move forward. Finally, my mother left and I was able to play my brand new favorite game, Oxymoron. Okay, moving forward. When I first turned on the game, everything started normally, I looked at the cartridge and thought I had noticed the blood was actually disappearing from the cartridge. Spooky ghosts are inside of it, obviously. I shrugged this off as a consequence of the rain cloud constantly being overhead. Okay, I mean, wait, your room's you probably ruined your room. Like there's rain, wait a minute. There's rain only over the game, like a tiny little rain cloud? Oh, that's cute. That's extra cute. I played for hours and eventually stumbled upon the first bunny in the basement. More alliteration, thanks for that. Now normally this bunny should be soft, rectangular yellow. Interesting descriptors again. You like to use interesting descriptors. But anywho, it's what. But this time he was a deep red, almost like badly munched cherries, but also darker. What? Anywho, it's what. I quickly captured the bunny rabbit, curious to see if he had anything new to say. Alas, he just said the same thing he always says and gave me a blue power star. But this time my star count didn't, increase by 1, instead, ooh, weird comma placement. It decreased by 1. Spooky ghosts, how are you still alive at this point? You should be dead by now. This scared me to the point where I didn't want to play more. I quickly removed the cartridge from the slot with 2 fingers and threw the cartridge against my newly placed door. But instead of bouncing off the door like I had anticipated, it shot through the door, into the floor, and everybody do the dinosaur. I mean, into the first story of our house. Sorry, I had to weave that one in there. But Arthur went to the first floor, navigating the sea of adorable beagles, and I agree they truly are. Before I knew it, I was up to my erect nipples and beagles. I'm gonna move forward now. Eventually, I came to the spot where the game should have landed. Instead, all I found was a large hole, beagles pouring in. Should be a comma there, but I'm gonna let it go because beagles. I decided to follow the hole down and see what was inside. As I jumped, I felt instant regret for what I had just done. Like the instant regret playlist on YouTube. Everyone gets recommended that playlist. It's like the plague. Anywho's it's what? I fell for what seemed like seconds. Luckily, I had my many beagles to keep me company. How many beagles is it that you have to be up to your erect nipples? Why is the erect part important? These are all questions. Anywho's it's what? Eventually, I found the bottom of a whole Okay, wait. Eventually, I found the bottom of a hole. Beagles scattered about, yapping happily and playing with one another. That is so cute. I realized that I was surrounded by large-ish domed rectangles and that kind of looked like tombs. That was a slog to get through that sentence. Oh my god. You need to turn on spell check for that one. But Arthur decided to move because Arthur was getting rained on by beagles, and that's no good. You're right, that is no good. I searched around for the game, but couldn't find anything. I opened up the crypts, hoping that the game had somehow fallen into one of these closed crypts. At least you're aware of how silly that idea is. Alas, I was unsuccessful in finding the game. After what seemed like a minute, ooh, a whole minute. Interesting. I gave up my search and decided to head back up the hole. The hole was too far to jump, so I decided to fashion a ladder out of beagles. They happily obliged, and I climbed out of the now beagle-filled hole. That is the cutest hole ever. Okay, I slowly made my way back into the room, kind of bummed out that I have lost. I'm sorry, this grammar's killing me right now. I slowly made my way back to my room, kind of bummed out that I have lost my super special rain edition of Super Mario 64, available only at GameStop. Is this like why do you keep bringing up the fact that it's from GameStop? But it continues. As my large, muscular legs carried me up the stairs, I turned and entered my room, only to find that the game was back in my Nintendo 64, covered in bones and cobwebs. Now at this point, I was genuinely spooked. But I figured the game would just come back if I didn't play it all the way through. Yeah, just keep building on that creepypasta aesthetic you got going on. With a heavy heart, I slid the power slider on the front of the Nintendo 64 once more to the on position. A white flicker appeared on the screen for 0.32 seconds, then was gone. After another 2 seconds, the game started up. I was greeted by Mario saying, "Press start to play." But upon thinking about it again, he didn't say press start to play, he said press start to die. It was too late. My finger was already traveling quickly towards the start button, and but a moment later I had pressed the start button. It was at this point that my pinky on my right hand began to ache painfully. I figured this was just because I played too many video games and continued on. Wow, really just setting off the warning flags in the process, huh? Okay. The game played normally, and I played all the way to Big Boo's Haunt, the spookiest of all levels, but Arthur made it there in one night, and then I was too tired to continue. I snuggled into my slippery bed and began to sleep, only to be awakened by the aching of my pinky becoming too much to handle. I was already awake, so I continued my quest to beat the evil game of Super Mario 64 Rain Edition. Yes, just play into that creepypasta hand for me, would ya? I played about 4 stars into Big Boo's Haunt when I suddenly had a spooky feeling coming from right behind me, I slammed my head around 180 degrees and was so spooked I nearly spilled my Sunny D all over the room. The walls, the floors, the ceiling, all over. I just apparently hit it aggressively. Almost. What I saw was a Boo, but in real life, and spooky. Ghosts, literally ghosts. When I looked upon his nearly transparent face, he would cover his eyes. I remembered what to do here, what with Super Mario 64 being my favorite game and all. I thought to myself, I will look away and wait for the Boo to approach before doing a backflip, rubbing my knees upon the ceiling, and finishing off this foolish apparition with a ground pound. Upon execution, however, this did not happen. I turned and began the backflip. However, as my knees touched the ceiling, I fell on my neck and snapped my neck off. Snapped it completely off, apparently. That's impressive. I uttered a large "oof" and shrank to just over half of my size. My current size. Wow. Specific. I knew I was no match for this spirit in my current state, so I grabbed the game and slowly snuck past the Boo while his face was covered. I descended upon the sea of beagles, swimming through the pleasant fluff of man's best friend. That's a weird sentence to say. Okay. Swimming through the pleasant fluff of man's best friend. I'll just tack that onto the list of things I had to say today. Anywho, it's what? Swimming through this pleasant fluff of man's best friend. I can't get enough of saying that. To my front door. I opened the door. Beagles spilling onto the porch before darting in every which direction. And quickly thought of a plan. I would visit my best friend Tom to see what he did when he was being haunted by some Sonic plushie or something. It was late, so I kicked in the door only to see my best friend Tom locked in an epic combat with a Sonic plushie once again. I eagerly tapped Tom on the shoulder and asked what to do about my situation. Well, this distracted Tom, and it was then that the plushie made its final move, decapitating my best friend Tom. I stood back in horror at what had just happened, realizing that I may have had something to do with his death. You think? Maybe just a little bit there, you might have had something to do with that. Eventually, the Sonic plushie faded to black and floated out of the house, extra spooky-like, apparently. I decided to search around to find a way to cure myself of my super spooky problems. Oh wait, sorry. I decided to search around to find a way to cure myself before my super spooky problems got to me like they got to my cute best friend Tom. I entered his room, and there it sat. The legendary Sunny D beverage that killed his console in that overdone creepypasta. I grasped the Sunny D into my bosom and darted toward my house. I thrust the cold, refreshing beverage toward the Boo's face, and it accepted the drink. We are friends now, and everything is back to normal. The end. Guys, I need to come clean on something. The author of this story is none other than me. I know, shocking that such an amazing story could come from someone like me. But I wrote it a while ago and I wanted to take a look at it on the channel once I had kind of, I could come back to it with new eyes. I'd basically forgotten most of what had happened. So it was a fun little endeavor. I'm not really going to rate it at the end because that seems a bit strange, but do you have any stories that you would like me to check out? Are there any stories that you think are worth taking a read through? If there are, let me know in the comments below. Real quick, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons, George Kasner III, Mark Comer, Emai, and Milanus. They have been so awesome to support me on Patreon, and I greatly appreciate it. You, from the bottom of my heart, thanks a lot. If you would like to support me on Patreon as well, a link will be below or hopefully on screen sometime soon. And with that, I'm Newbornkilik, and I will see you in the next one. I'm out.